Every era of racing history has a machine that dared to question everything. A project so bold it nearly rewrote what engineers believed was possible. These are the machines that live on the edge between innovation and disaster, where one decision could change the course of an entire sport. They remind us that progress is never clean. It is forged in risk, shaped by failure, and remembered for the courage it took to even try. Today, we explore one of those legends. A machine that came from a time when raw experimentation still ruled the paddock. It was light years ahead of its peers, yet too complex for its moment. Its story is a cautionary tale wrapped in brilliance, where ambition collided with the limits of technology and time itself. Stay tuned, and if you love the forgotten heroes of engineering, make sure to like, subscribe, and tell us which machine we should uncover next. In 1982, the Kawasaki KR500 emerged as a radical statement from a company determined to prove it could stand toe-to-toe with the established powers of Grand Prix racing. Kawasaki had already made its mark in superbike and production-based classes, but the KR500 was a pure prototype, an unfiltered showcase of engineering intent. Built during an era when the 500 cubic centimeters class was the ultimate test of man and machine, this motorcycle did not follow the rules of convention. Instead of the familiar tubular steel frame used by rivals, the KR500 featured a full aluminum monocoque chassis, a design borrowed more from aerospace thinking than from any motorcycle shop. It was sleek, narrow, and shockingly advanced, a physical expression of Kawasaki's desire to leap beyond incremental progress and redefine racing geometry itself. The concept began in the late 1970s when Kawasaki engineers noticed diminishing returns from conventional frame development. Steel frames flexed under load, disrupting handling mid-corner. Weight reduction was limited, and chassis tuning had become a tedious process of compromise. The KR500 was intended to neutralize those compromises. By replacing the frame with a stressed skin monocoque structure, Kawasaki sought both stiffness and lightness. The result was a compact shape that doubled as both frame and fuel tank, reducing weight and improving aerodynamics. It was beautiful in theory and breathtaking in execution. It promised to deliver razor-sharp feedback and incredible mid-corner stability. But beauty and bravery are rarely enough in racing. As soon as the KR500 hit the track, reality began to intrude. Riders reported a harsh, unforgiving feel. The very stiffness that engineers celebrated made it nearly impossible to predict grip. Instead of flexing slightly to absorb irregularities, the monocoque frame transmitted every vibration directly to the rider. On smooth circuits, it was manageable. On rougher surfaces, it became a test of endurance. Kawasaki engineers chased balance through suspension tuning, but each improvement in one area exposed new weaknesses elsewhere. This was the paradox of progress. An idea too advanced for the tools of its time. The engine of the Kawasaki KR500 was equally ambitious. It used a liquid-cooled, square-4 two-stroke with rotary valves, pushing out power figures competitive with the best from another manufacturer, yet packaged more tightly for aerodynamic efficiency. The power band was explosive, a trademark of the 500 cubic centimeters monsters of the era, but the challenge lay in taming it. Throttle control demanded precision bordering on artistry, and any hesitation could turn a fast lap into a near miss. Engineers refined carburation and exhaust resonance to broaden the delivery, yet the unpredictability of the chassis often overshadowed those gains. Each iteration of the KR500 brought new refinements. In its early seasons, Kawasaki experimented with different alloy compositions, new swing arm geometries, and incremental weight savings. Yet racing is never patient. While Kawasaki's engineers worked through trial and error, the competition evolved. Rivals introduced refined steel frames that combined flexibility with stability, while engine performance continued to climb across the grid. The KR500's promise of futuristic control was overtaken by the reality of better, simpler machines winning races. Still, the KR500 commanded attention. Spectators and competitors alike recognized it as something extraordinary, a glimpse of what racing could become if someone could just make it work. Its monocoque chassis caught the eye of designers across disciplines. It suggested a future where motorcycles might finally break free from the tube and weld traditions that had defined them since the 1950s. Yet that future remained stubbornly out of reach. Kawasaki's engineers began to realize that they were running into a wall not of imagination, but of material science. The alloys of the day simply could not deliver the perfect blend of rigidity and controlled flex they needed. The financial side added more pressure. Grand Prix racing was expensive, and Kawasaki's program lacked the massive budgets enjoyed by some rivals. Each new test meant shipping parts, riders, and support crews across continents. Results were inconsistent, and sponsorship value depended on podiums, not potential. The KR500 was a marvel of engineering, but not a source of trophies. Internal debates intensified. Should the company continue chasing this dream or redirect its focus to production-based racing, where Kawasaki already had a strong reputation and growing market influence? Behind the scenes, engineers fought to keep the project alive. They believed the KR500 could become competitive with just a few more refinements. They proposed lighter composite panels, new suspension linkages, and incremental aerodynamic gains. But corporate patience was wearing thin. Every season without a victory made the program harder to justify. The competition was relentless, and technology was moving in directions that did not favor Kawasaki's monocoque experiment. By the end of 1982, whispers of withdrawal began circulating through the paddock. Yet for all its challenges, the Kawasaki KR500 left a mark deeper than its race record suggests. It was a machine that made engineers think differently. The monocoque frame questioned assumptions about what a motorcycle could be, and in doing so, it opened conversations that would eventually shape future design philosophies. What the KR500 lacked in results, it made up for in influence. Even as Kawasaki began to reconsider its role in the Grand Prix world, the lessons learned from this radical machine were already seeding ideas that would resurface decades later in composite frame development, mass centralization concepts, and integrated aerodynamic packaging. The KR500 was not just a motorcycle. It was a laboratory on wheels, testing the limits of human creativity against the unforgiving stopwatch of competition. Its story during the 1982 season reflects the purest tension in motorsport, the balance between daring innovation and practical success. Kawasaki's engineers chased a vision that was simply ahead of its time, and though it never delivered the wins they hoped for, it laid groundwork for technologies that would later define the sport. The machine's legacy began as a failure on paper, but ended as a triumph of imagination. By 1982, the Kawasaki KR500 had reached its most mature configuration. And yet, its fundamental challenges remained unsolved. Kawasaki engineers had pushed the monocoque chassis concept as far as materials and manufacturing could allow, revising wall thicknesses, welding methods, and even fuel tank integration to reduce flex inconsistencies. Every small improvement was a battle against physics. The KR500 could corner with uncanny stability at high speed, but it punished even the smallest mistake. Riders described it as demanding total commitment. Once leaned into a corner, it resisted mid-corner adjustments with stubborn precision. What was intended as a perfectly rigid masterpiece had instead become a machine that required a superhuman touch. The Kawasaki KR500's greatest strength was also its biggest flaw: its stiffness. Traditional tubular frames offered some degree of flex, absorbing shocks and surface irregularities in ways that helped tires maintain contact under changing loads. The KR500, with its aluminum shell structure, lacked that natural compliance. On smooth circuits, its precision was extraordinary. On bumpy tracks, it became unpredictable. Suspension technology of the early 1980s simply could not compensate for the behavior of such an unyielding chassis. The data showed fast single-lap potential but poor consistency over race distance, especially as tire performance changed. This inconsistency made it difficult for riders to trust the machine during long races. To counter this, Kawasaki engineers introduced incremental updates through 1981 and 1982, experimenting with revised suspension pivot points, lighter alloy compositions, and different engine mounting positions. They tried to tune flex into the structure where none existed before. But this type of tuning was still in its infancy. Unlike today's advanced computer simulations, each change then required weeks of fabrication and on-track testing. Every adjustment cost time and money, and Kawasaki's Grand Prix team was already under financial scrutiny. Meanwhile, other manufacturers were finding success with more conventional designs refined through sheer persistence rather than revolution. The KR500's engine remained one of the most compact and technically sophisticated power plants on the grid. Its square 4 configuration offered both smoothness and high power potential. while rotary valves gave precise control over intake timing. In the dyno room, it was a masterpiece. On the track, however, the power delivery was fierce, and combined with the chassis rigidity, it amplified the difficulty of finding traction. Riders needed impeccable throttle finesse to balance the engine's aggressive mid-range surge. Kawasaki continued to refine port timing and exhaust resonance chambers to soften the curve, but even the best updates could not overcome the core issue. The chassis refused to communicate enough feedback to allow confident control at the limit. The racing calendar of 1982 further exposed these weaknesses. On circuits with long straights and smooth corners, the KR500 could shine briefly, showing glimpses of the potential Kawasaki's engineers believed in. But on tighter, uneven tracks, it fell behind. Tire wear was unpredictable. The rigid frame transmitted more load to the contact patch, accelerating degradation. Mechanics adjusted suspension settings race after race, yet results remained inconsistent. The riders did their best, extracting every ounce of speed possible, but their efforts were met with frustration. The KR500 had the heart of a winner trapped inside a machine that refused to compromise. Kawasaki's competitors, while perhaps less daring, had the advantage of evolution rather than revolution. Their machines grew faster incrementally, gaining reliability and handling predictability. Kawasaki's gamble on the monocoque frame had isolated it from that development curve. By the time the KR500 reached its final racing season, the difference in performance consistency was undeniable. The company's engineering pride was intact, but its patience was wearing thin. Racing budgets were being reviewed, and internal reports suggested that the resources devoted to the KR500 might yield better returns in production-based racing, where Kawasaki could leverage lessons for its consumer models. Still, the team pushed forward, refining the KR500 until the very end. Some of the later test bikes featured subtle composite reinforcements and weight savings that hinted at what could have been if development had continued. The engineers learned volumes about heat dissipation, vibration harmonics, and fuel distribution inside a monocoque chassis. Many of those insights would quietly inform later sport bike designs, even if the public never made the connection. The KR500's influence began to ripple beyond its short life. The human element of the KR500 story cannot be ignored. The riders who piloted it knew they were part of something unusual, a project that represented Kawasaki's willingness to challenge convention at all costs. They endured unpredictable handling and demanding setups, yet spoke with respect about the vision behind the machine. The engineers, meanwhile, lived the daily frustration of chasing milliseconds through untested ideas. For them, the KR500 became more than a racing project. It was a philosophical statement about what innovation required: risk, patience, and persistence. As the 1982 season drew to a close, Kawasaki faced a difficult decision: continue refining the KR500 in hopes that materials science and time would catch up, or redirect resources to areas with more immediate commercial benefit. The choice to step away from Grand Prix racing was painful but pragmatic. Kawasaki's factory program ended that year, closing the chapter on one of the most ambitious engineering efforts in motorcycle history. Many viewed it as a failure at the time, but in hindsight, it was a moment of transition, a necessary step in the evolution of performance engineering. The end of the KR500 did not mark the end of its ideas. Within a decade, the concept of using the motorcycle structure as a stressed member became mainstream, seen in aluminum twin spar designs and eventually in carbon monocoque experiments at the highest levels of competition. What Kawasaki attempted with the KR500 in 1982 would later reappear in more refined forms across MotoGP and superbike machines. The monocoque dream was never wrong. It was simply premature. The materials, computing tools, and testing capabilities of the early 1980s were not ready to realize its full potential. When viewed from today's perspective, the KR500 represents a crucial evolutionary branch in racing's technological tree. It dared to break from tradition when few others would, forcing the industry to confront the limits of its understanding. The cost was high, measured not only in dollars but in missed victories and unfulfilled potential. Yet every engineer who studies the KR500 recognizes its contribution. It expanded the vocabulary of motorcycle design. The failure to win did not erase its value. It amplified it, showing that even unsuccessful experiments can advance the collective knowledge of an entire sport. Looking back, The Kawasaki KR500 of 1982 stands as one of those rare machines that burned brightly and briefly, leaving an imprint that far exceeded its time on the grid. By its final season, the KR500 had evolved into a refined, visually stunning piece of engineering, a motorcycle that seemed to whisper of what was still to come. The project represented Kawasaki's deep desire to redefine performance through pure innovation, and though its results never matched its ambition, its story remains essential to understanding how racing technology evolves. The KR500's brief career was the perfect storm of inspiration, experimentation, and limitation. It was both a triumph of imagination and a reminder that innovation can sometimes run faster than its own shadow. The Kawasaki KR500's monocoque design remains one of the most audacious engineering choices in Grand Prix history. Even decades later, it feels daring. The idea of wrapping an entire motorcycle around a single structural shell seemed radical in 1982 because it was. Where other manufacturers trusted steel tubes, the KR500 replaced them with an aluminum skin that doubled as the frame, the fuel tank, and the backbone of the entire bike. This design was meant to eliminate flex entirely, offering the rider total precision. Yet that rigidity became the problem. The machine was too sharp, too immediate, and too unpredictable over real-world racing surfaces. The same qualities that made it theoretically superior made it practically unmanageable. At the heart of the Kawasaki KR500 lay an engine that could have been legendary on its own. The liquid-cooled rotary valve Square 4 was compact and brutally efficient, the result of years of two-stroke experience distilled into one pure racing package. It delivered immense power for its weight, but its character demanded control few could fully master. On smoother tracks, the KR500 could flash brilliance, its aerodynamic body slicing through air with precision that hinted at its potential. Yet every time it showed promise, another issue surfaced: heat buildup in the frame, unpredictable front-end feedback, or vibration resonance from the rigid structure. It was as if the motorcycle itself refused to be tamed. Inside Kawasaki's workshops, engineers worked relentlessly to solve these issues. They cut weight wherever possible, improved engine cooling, and experimented with new alloys to tune the frame's behavior. Each step forward seemed to reveal another layer of complexity. The KR500 was not just fast, it was demanding to build, maintain, and ride. What began as a bold vision was turning into an expensive lesson in the realities of pushing too far ahead of available technology. Yet even as the project's future dimmed, its impact deepened. Engineers who had worked on the KR500 carried its lessons into future programs, reshaping Kawasaki's approach to performance engineering across multiple disciplines. By late 1982, Kawasaki's decision to withdraw from Grand Prix racing marked the end of the KR500's active life, but not its influence. The knowledge gained from this project would quietly guide the company's sport bike development for decades. When later machines emerged with carefully balanced stiffness, integrated aerodynamic shapes, and compact engine layouts, the fingerprints of the KR500 were there. The monocoque dream resurfaced in the 21st century in MotoGP carbon fiber chassis designs, proof that the idea itself had simply needed time to mature. What was once too radical had become the foundation for modern thinking about mass centralization and frame integration. The Kawasaki KR500 story is not one of defeat but of discovery. Every lap it turned was a lesson written in data and intuition. Every failure taught something about the fine balance between theoretical perfection and practical control. Kawasaki may have left the 500 cubic centimeters class without a victory, but it left with something more lasting: a deeper understanding of how motorcycles behave when pushed to their limits. The KR500 taught engineers that rigidity without feedback is chaos, that lightness without compliance can be slower, not faster, and that true innovation demands both courage and humility. Among historians and racing engineers, the KR500 is now regarded as a legend in disguise, a machine that represents the purest form of experimental racing. It proved that even a project with no trophies can redefine how a company, and an entire sport, thinks about progress. In the decades since, its philosophy has echoed across every corner of performance design. Each time a manufacturer tries a new material, a new frame layout, or a daring aerodynamic concept, the spirit of the KR500 is there, whispering a reminder. Progress begins when you question everything. The riders who piloted the Kawasaki KR500 may not have won championships, but they carried the torch of innovation that burns through every generation of racing. They experienced a motorcycle that demanded respect and rewarded precision, even when it punished imperfection. Their experiences became data. Their struggles became breakthroughs. Their courage turned a mechanical experiment into a lasting piece of history. The engineers who built it may have stepped away from the project, but they left behind a legacy of bold thinking that continues to inspire those who refuse to settle for conventional solutions. The final chapter of the Kawasaki KR500 is not written in race results, but in influence. It taught the industry that even unproven ideas have value if they expand the limits of understanding. It reminded future designers that innovation is a journey, not a guarantee. And it cemented Kawasaki's reputation as a brand willing to take risks that others would not. Though time has faded its name from mainstream memory, those who study racing's evolution know its significance. The KR500's aluminum skin and restless heart told a story that no trophy ever could. That sometimes, the machines that fail fastest teach the lessons that last longest. In the world of motorsport, progress rarely comes from comfort. It comes from taking leaps into the unknown, from machines like the Kawasaki KR500 that dared to ask questions too soon. Its legacy lives not in the sound of victory laps but in the quiet hum of every innovation that followed, a tribute to the brave experiment that tried to rewrite the rules before the world was ready. The story of the Kawasaki KR500 ends not in celebration but in reflection, and that makes it even more powerful. It stands as one of those rare projects that reveal the true purpose of competition. Discovery. The KR500 of 1982 was not designed simply to win races. It was designed to ask questions others were afraid to ask. What happens when you eliminate flex from a motorcycle chassis? How far can you push the limits of stiffness, mass centralization, and aerodynamic integration before the human element becomes the weakest link? Kawasaki's engineers dared to find out, and in doing so, they expanded the boundaries of motorcycle design far beyond their time. When the Kawasaki KR500 took shape, the world of 500 cubic centimeters Grand Prix racing was still guided by tradition. Every major team refined what had already worked. Kawasaki chose to abandon that approach entirely. Its monocoque chassis, aluminum skin, and radical engine packaging were the physical embodiment of rebellion through engineering. It did not play by the same rules, and that decision ultimately cost it podiums. But those same choices planted the seeds of a new philosophy that would define motorcycle design decades later. Even as the project concluded, its influence had already begun to echo in every workshop where engineers debated how to balance rigidity and feel, weight and resilience, structure and soul. The lessons from the KR500 became unspoken commandments within Kawasaki's design culture. Innovation must serve the rider, not the concept. Progress without feedback is illusion. Precision without forgiveness is failure. These principles shaped the next generations of Kawasaki performance machines, creating a lineage that valued both speed and communication, both power and control. The KR500's shortcomings taught engineers to design motorcycles that breathe with the rider rather than fight against them. That insight, more than any technical breakthrough, became its true legacy. Beyond Kawasaki, the KR500's spirit influenced the larger racing world. The concept of the chassis as an integral structural shell re-emerged in modern MotoGP, where carbon fiber monocoques and stressed engine designs became the cutting edge. Each of those machines owes a quiet debt to the KR500. It proved the idea was possible, even if it was premature. Today's engineers, armed with advanced materials and computer modeling, can achieve the harmony that Kawasaki's 1982 team could only imagine. What was once an experiment has become standard practice, a full-circle vindication of the vision that began in that daring green prototype. The Kawasaki KR500 also teaches an important truth about innovation itself. Progress rarely arrives neatly packaged in success. It often comes wrapped in frustration, in the slow and painful accumulation of lessons learned the hard way. The KR500 was not a failure in the traditional sense. It was an exploration that ended before the road was fully paved. It showed that every boundary worth crossing carries a cost, and that the pursuit of excellence is defined not by trophies but by transformation. Kawasaki paid that cost willingly, and the sport as a whole grew stronger because of it. For enthusiasts today, the KR500 is a symbol of what happens when imagination outruns the moment. It represents an era when engineers could take risks that would never pass modern committees or corporate forecasting models. It reminds us that without bold experiments, progress stalls. The KR500 may not have changed racing immediately, but it prepared the ground for the revolutions that followed. Its DNA runs through every cutting-edge sport bike, every lightweight chassis, and every discussion about how to make machines and riders move as one. So when we look back at the Kawasaki KR500 of 1982, we see more than a racing motorcycle. We see the embodiment of a question that still defines the future. How far can we push technology before it pushes back? That question keeps innovation alive. It ensures that even the forgotten machines of history remain part of the story, whispering their lessons to those willing to listen. And that is why the KR500 endures, not as a failure, but as proof that true progress requires courage. It takes the willingness to risk comfort, reputation, and convention in pursuit of something greater. The KR500 stands as a timeless reminder that every great leap forward begins with a step into uncertainty. Its legacy lives on in every racetrack experiment, every bold prototype, and every dream that dares to imagine the next impossible idea.